Hello, and welcome to our skill lesson on nonfiction text structure. Remember that you can always pause, you can go back, you can redo anything that you need to make sure that you have this concept down. So get ready, make sure you have your guided notes, and let's go. In this section, we're going to talk about what text structure is, the different types of text structure, and why text structure is important. So, text structure refers to the ways that authors organize information within the text. It's just the way they are giving you the information that they want you to know. And one text can and often does have multiple structures within it. Now, there are 5 different types of text structure. And again, there can be more than one type within a piece of writing or an article or whatever it is that we're talking about here. So the first is description. Then we have sequence, which is also sometimes called chronological. We have compare and contrast, cause and effect, and finally, problem and solution. Make sure you have these down and make sure that you know exactly what we're going to be learning about because you're going to start taking notes about each of these as we go. Now that we know the basics of what text structure is and what the 5 types of text structure are called, we're going to talk a little bit about why text structure is important. There's going to be 4 sort of main reasons that it's important and then why we're sort of learning this in the first place. So, the first one, text structure gives the reader a purpose for reading. Why are you reading something? Are you learning it? Are you reading something to learn about something, right? Is it describing something? Then it would be descriptive. What is the purpose for reading whatever it is that we're reading? Number 2, knowing the structure helps us to comprehend and understand the text. Again, if we know what the purpose is, if we understand the reason for the writing, we will more easily be able to understand and comprehend the text. And then, as a result, be able to answer questions about it on a test like the MOI or like the EOG at the end of the year. Number 3, authors use Number 3, authors use structure to organize the information so the reader can figure out the important details. Nonfiction also uses text features to help with this. Again, this is going to be that organization. It's going to answer the why. It's going to make it more clear. It's going to make it better to be understood by the reader. Those are important parts, especially when we're talking about nonfiction writing, where the topic tends to be a little on the more dry side occasionally, but not always. But it tends to be something that's real, right? That's the whole point. It's nonfiction. It's true. We need to help organize our ideas because there's a bunch of different ways you could go about nonfiction topics. Text features are going to be things like titles. They're going to be things like little descriptions under pictures, the pictures themselves, all of those things that help us to understand the important details and why the writing is the way that it is. Why is it presented the way that it is? Finally, number 4, it helps the reader to summarize the text. We're going to keep practicing this. Summary is something that is pretty difficult for students sometimes, especially when we start talking about summary that is free from any sort of personal ideas, judgments, anything that you think about the text. No, we want an objective summary that is just exactly what happened, and knowing the structure is going to help with that, right? If it's problem and solution, our summary is going to be you're going to state the problem and you're going to state the solution. It makes it so much easier to try and figure out those things. So now that we know what text structure is, what the 5 kinds of text structure are called, and why text structure is important, we're going to start learning about the individual structures. All right, we're going to dive in with our first text structure, and that's going to be description or descriptive, however you want to say it. But it's going to be our first text structure that is also going to be our most common. So hold on and let's get into the details. Okay, so what is description? What is a descriptive text structure? This is going to be a pretty simple concept. This is going to be when the author is explaining a topic, idea, person, place, or thing by listing its characteristics, features, and examples. In short, they are describing something and using things about it and examples including it to help you understand it. the focus is going to be on one thing and then the components that connect to that one thing. For example, maybe you are writing a paragraph about how World War II started. Your focus is going to be World War II, how it started, and the components of that are going to be those reasons that it started. Okay, now you know the basics about what descriptive text structure is. I'm going to give you some clues in how to handle it. You'll notice that we have signal questions and we have signal words. Both of those things are going to help you to understand and figure out exactly it is what you're working with. So for our signal words, we have for instance, such as, to begin with, an example, to illustrate, characteristics, right? All of these things are taking a focus and then using these words to then describe or explain our focus. For example, if you're looking at a text, a paragraph about strawberries, right? Our focus, you're going to look for the word, you're going to look for that topic, strawberry, 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 everywhere that you can. If you can find that word repeated and it next to these type of things, for instance, such as, to begin with, right? An example, whatever it is, then you have a pretty good shot that what you're looking at is the descriptive text structure. Our signal questions are going to help us to sort of narrow down not only what text structure we're looking at, but can you answer these questions about the text structure and does it follow the way that it's supposed to? So, what specific topic, person, idea, or thing is being described? Look at your paragraph. Can you see that word strawberry repeated over and over again? Then you have a specific topic and you have those characteristics that are so common when we're talking about descriptive text structure. Now, how is it being described? You can start looking at it. Are they saying the physical characteristics? Are we talking about how strawberries contribute to something else? Maybe you're making a strawberry rhubarb pie, right? Strawberries are then contributing to this maybe paragraph about how to make a pie. It's still descriptive, but our focus is different, right? Our focus is on pie, and our strawberry is more a component of that. Finally, then you want to ask yourself, what is important to remember about it? There's something that the author wants you to know. There's some description of something that matters within a bigger context. What is that? And how can you figure that out? Are questions that you need to ask yourself when you're looking at a descriptive nonfiction text structure. Okay, we are now going to move on to our second text structure, compare and contrast. Please remember that you can pause and go back if you need to. Make sure that you have a full understanding of each of our structures before you're moving on. So, for compare and contrast, this is something that should not be new to you guys. This is something that you have talked about often in class and something that you do often in your own lives. So, what is compare and contrast? It shows how two or more things are alike and or how they are different, right? We are comparing two things or we are contrasting two things. So again, we're going to have our signal questions and our signal words. Remember here, we are talking about how two or more things are related. Are they the same? Are they different? So when we look at our signal words, they're all going to have that sort of those buzzwords: alike, same as, similar, as well as, not only, but also, right? We're comparing two things, but then also maybe something might be different. Both, on the other hand, different from. All of these words are going to give you a clue as to what we are dealing with here. For our signal questions, we want to ask, what are things being compared? In what ways are they alike? And in what ways are they different? If you can't answer those questions, you're probably not dealing with compare and contrast signal words, right? So if we go back to our fruit example, if we have a paragraph and we're talking about strawberries, but then all of a sudden we start talking about raspberries and like, they're both sort of red colored, but raspberries grow on a bush and strawberries grow on a thing. We're talking about how these two fruits are related. How are they the same? How are they different? And why is that important? Those are all going to be clues that we are talking about a compare and contrast structure. Next up, we have our third text structure, which is sequence, also known as chronological. And usually when we say chronological order comes very quickly afterwards. So sit back and let's get started. So now, when we talk about sequence, we talk a lot about chronological order. This is going to be one of those that is easier to recognize than some of the other ones, but you do have to be careful because we are describing items or events in order. Okay, it has to be in order. Tells the steps to follow to do something or make something, right? It is in chronological, so time order. For example, if you're reading a paragraph that said, first thing in the morning, I get up and then I go brush my teeth and then I sit down and I do my makeup, or however it is, if we are talking about events, they have to be in order, in chronological or numerical order, right? We're talking about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. First, I get out my knife, I get out my bread, I get out my peanut butter and my jelly. Then I take the bread out. We are talking about how to do something in steps, in the order in which it should be done. So sequence signal words and signal questions are going to be pretty distinct here. Our signal words first, second, next, then, before, after, pretty much everything that has to do with the order in which something is done, the time in which something is done, they're all going to have that same common thread here. Not long after, following, all of those things. Now, our signal questions: what items, events, or steps are listed? You want to think about, do I have multiple steps? If you don't have multiple steps, we are not talking about a sequence structure here. Once you figure out, do you have items, events, or steps listed, then you have to look and make sure that they happen in order. Do they have to happen in this order? Do they always happen in this order? They have to happen. Some things have to happen in a certain order. Some things are personal preference in a certain order. But if they are being told to you in a specific sequence that matters, then we are talking about sequence or chronological order in our structure. Next up, we have cause and effect. All right, so what is cause and effect? This, again, is something that is a concept that you guys should be pretty used to at this point. We are just talking about things that happened and why those things happened. So the author lists one or more causes or events and the resulting consequences or effects. So the cause is why something happened, and the effects are what happened. At the end of the day, those two things have to be related. If they're not related, then we're not talking about cause and effect here. Sometimes the effect will be listed first. For example, if we're reading an article about Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina, sometimes we'll start with what happened, right? We had destruction and a lot of people lost their property, lost their animals, some people lost lives, those kinds of things. And the cause of that is the hurricane, right? So sometimes we talk about the effects before we talk about the cause. Sometimes we talk about the cause and then we talk about the effects. It's just going to depend on what we're talking about and what the purpose of talking about it is. So, for our signal words and signal questions for cause and effect, it's going to be how two concepts are related in that one causes the other, unlike our other text structure, which was compare and contrast, where we're just talking about how things are the same and how things are different. This is specific to how they are related because one caused the other. So our signal words, so, because, this happened because this happened, right? Since, therefore, if this happens, then this happens. This led to the reason why, maybe due to effect of, consequently, for this reason. All of these things are going to illustrate how one thing was caused by another. Okay, our signal questions: what happened, why did it happen, and what caused it to happen. If you can't answer these questions, you are not looking at a cause and effect text structure. Finally, we are going to look at our last text structure, which is problem and solution. This one is exactly what it sounds like. There's a problem and there's a solution. And as we've talked about in class, the solution isn't always happily ever after. It isn't always positive, it isn't always negative. It can also just be neutral. It can be what it is. So let's explore a little bit more. The basic structure of the problem and solution structure is that the author is going to tell us about a problem, sometimes says there is a problem, then gives one or more possible solutions to the problem. Like I said, it's pretty simple in that we have a problem, something happens, there's an issue of some sort, and then we have some possible solutions. If we're talking about past tense, maybe they tell us what the actual solution was, maybe we get some options, but regardless, you're going to have a problem that is then moved into a solution. For our problem and solution signal questions and signal words, we are going to have a lot of those inquisitive type words: question, dilemma, puzzle, solve, right? Answer, reason for the problem. All of our signal words are going to have that sort of same common thread, much like all the other text structures. But again, you're not always going to be easily able to tell. You have to go in and ask yourself these signal questions. What is the problem? Why is there a problem? Is anything being done to try and solve the problem? And what could be done to solve the problem? If you can't answer those from the text, you should definitely go back and try and figure out if one of the other text structures fits better. Now that you've taken notes on each of the 5 main text structure types, we're going to do some practice. You're going to listen or read for yourself. You can always pause if you'd rather read it for yourself instead of hearing my voice. You're going to read the paragraph and then you are going to figure out which text structure you believe it to be and why. At the beginning of this presentation, I did tell you that text can have multiple text structures within them, and that is very true. For this particular practice exercise, each of these paragraphs are going to have one main text structure that's going to be the most important, and that is the one that you're looking for. Identify the text structure. Butterflies and moths are both flying insects. Both have wings and antennae. They have similar life cycles that include the egg and caterpillar stages. However, they are different in several ways. Butterflies are usually active during the day, while moths tend to be active at night. Butterflies have knobs at the end of their antennae, but moths do not. Butterflies hold their wings up when they land, but moths keep their wings flat when they land. Please make sure that you go back through your notes and go ahead and write down some signal words, write down some questions, anything that you have. You can help try and figure this out, and we will go over them after we're done. When you spend your hard-earned savings on a pair of shoes, you want to get the most for your money. One way to do this is to clean your shoes, but when you get done, they'll almost look brand new. First, get out a toothbrush and some cleaning spray. Spray the shoes over a sink with no dishes in it and gently scrub the shoes with a toothbrush. Wash the dirt off of the toothbrush repeatedly while you are scrubbing. Lastly, scrub the shoes off with a paper towel or a clean rag. If you did a good job, your shoes should look almost as nice as they did when you first got them. Dr. James Naismith is known as the inventor of basketball. He invented the game in 1891 for students at a school in Massachusetts. The first game was played with a soccer ball and 2 peach baskets as goals. It gained popularity and was eventually being played at schools all over the United States. By 1893, just 2 years after the first game was played, basketball was gaining popularity in other countries. Basketball was introduced at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. Today, basketball is one of the world's most popular sports. Have you ever had plans to make some mouth-watering cookies or a delicious cake only to realize that you didn't have all the ingredients you needed? Well, applesauce just may be the answer to your problem, especially if you are not able to go to the store right away. Applesauce can be used in place of butter and oil in baking recipes. It can also be used as a substitute for an egg. For each large egg in a recipe requires, Use 1/4 cup applesauce in its place. Remember, the next time you are short oil, butter, or eggs for baking, applesauce may just be the answer to your problem. How does a germ enter the human body? There are 3 ways that it can enter. The first way is through a droplet. When a sick person sneezes or coughs without covering his or her nose and mouth, droplets spray through the air, and another person may breathe in these germs. A germ can also enter the human body through skin contact. Germs can live on surfaces for up to 3 hours. If a person touches something that is already infected, the germ may be transferred to their skin. Then it may eventually end up in their body if they put their hand to their mouth. The last way a germ can enter the body is through broken skin, like a cut. Some of these germs can cause illness. Okay, thank you for participating and paying attention to our nonfiction text structure lesson. We are going to go over these paragraphs, so please make sure that you have notes written down and your text structure guess ready to go.